A very long time ago, there once lived a very powerful king in the western part of Nigeria. His name is King Adeyemi. He was feared by all and respected, but he has a problem: the lack of an heir to the throne. In this kingdom, the royal family has to choose a son to rule as king when the reigning king dies. Adeyemi's family ruled the last 50 decades, and now that it's his turn to rule, he must have a male child to step on the throne when he's gone, or his family would lose the crown forever. Now he's faced with a dilemma. Before they got married, he promised his beautiful bride, Adirunke, that he would never get married to another woman because he loves her deeply, and he kept to that promise, despite interferences from the chiefs and members of his family. King Adeyemi sought after the best of the best priests, shamans, witches, and wizards, but none could provide solution to his childlessness. After 10 years without any cry of a baby in their home, his wife Aduronke pleaded with him to get married to another woman to preserve the throne. The king refused vehemently, saying he would stand by her until the very end. But Aduronke began to cry. She asked him to get a new wife if he truly wants her to be happy. According to her, it might even be an open door and help her conceive too. Even though it was a tough decision, King Adeyemi accepted and he got married to a young, beautiful bride. Months passed and there was no signs of pregnancy from the new bride. Then months turned into years and yet there was no child. The king didn't know what to do again. One day, he consulted the oracle to find out if he wasn't destined to have a child to take over the throne. But the priest revealed that he would have children, but it is not yet time. The oracle also advises the king to exercise a lot of patience to prevent him from making expensive mistakes. The king didn't know what to do as everyone makes fun of him for not having an heir to the throne. Some would say, if he dies now, there will be no one to take over the throne. What a shame, what an abomination. The king started hearing some of these rumors, and his subjects no longer accorded him the kind of respect he should be accorded. This was devastating for the king, and one day he decided to change the situation. He asked his chiefs to organize an event whereby he gets to choose three wives from the young, beautiful virgins in the community in his quest for a male child. The maidens in the village were happy to hear this, and soon everyone wants to become the queen. However, the king did not inform his beloved queen and first wife, Adurunke, and she was offended. So, she confronted her husband and he called her barren and he even blamed her for his predicament. He was so angry that he asked her to leave his home if she's not happy with him marrying three more wives who would give him an heir to the throne. Adirunke was very heartbroken to hear this, but there was nothing she could do. She would cry and sob in her room alone, and soon she became a shadow of herself. Weeks later, the competition took place and the king chose the best three and most beautiful women in the kingdom as his new queens. They were very young and the king took great care of them. He made sure that they were treated like royalty. Months later, the wives got pregnant almost at the same time and the king's joy knew no bounds. Meanwhile, he had abandoned his first queen and he sent her away like a leper whenever she goes to him. She went to the king and pleaded with him to make love to her because she also wants to have a son for him. The king did, but he made fun of her after, saying he has just wasted his efforts yet again. He called her barren and asked that she accept her fate and stop trying after 13 years. He even bragged that he only slept with his new wives once and they became pregnant. So it's all her fault all these years. So the king sent her away in anger and accused her of wasting over 13 years of his life, and he doesn't want to have anything to do with her again. Adironke pleaded and pleaded, but it all fell on deaf ears. He said he sent his guards to see her out of the palace and they threw her things out. Adironke got home and explained what happened to her parents. They couldn't withstand the shame of having their married daughter back in their home. So they sent her to stay with her mother's younger sister in the next village. Months later, King Adeyemi's four wives welcomed their babies with only days apart. Surprisingly, the wives gave birth to boys and the king was overjoyed. He was so happy that he was finally called a father and that he asked someone to take over the throne when he's old and gone. 7 days after the birth of the baby, The king threw a big party and invited all and sundry to celebrate with him. It's been 20 years after the birth of the children. The king has become old and very sick, and his four sons had grown into handsome young men. Over the years, the four sons has always fought and argued about who will become the king. Their mothers didn't help matters as they always argue about who gave birth first and who should succeed the king when he dies. The love and harmony that King Adeyemi shared and enjoyed with his first wife, Adironke, had gone with the wind when Adironke left. He remembered how much she cared for him and loved him and regretted his actions. His new wives only care about his properties and taking over the throne, and it hurt him greatly. He always wished silently that Adironke was there with him, but he is sure she must have moved on and gotten married to someone else. King Adeyemi is disturbed about his son's constant fights, and he decided to come up with a plan to make them learn to love each other and live in harmony. One day, he called them and informed them that he's dying and he wants his son to go on a journey to save him. He said he wants them to work in unity and find the golden staff in the old mythical forest and bring it to him. He also mentioned that the staff is very important and it will be used to determine the heir to the throne when he dies. The wives each called their sons aside and advised them on what to do. The brothers set out the next day and the search began. At first, they argued for days but ended up not finding the staff. One of the boys then suggested that they work in harmony since the king emphasized on it. They all agreed to work together and soon they found the staff. Then they began to argue again about who found the staff first, but one of the boys suggested that they take the staff home first and stop fighting. They spent days going back, and on the last day, they were all tired and decided to take a rest. The boy who suggested that they take the staff home first found fruit and gave it to his brothers to eat. One of the brothers also gave the boy a garden egg and he ate some. After eating the fruits, they were ready to continue their journey, but they began to feel pains in their stomach. The boy had poisoned the fruit to kill his brothers and be the only heir to the throne. He was happy to see them die, and he continued his journey happily. When he got back home, the king and queens asked him about his brother's whereabouts, and he lied that they were being chased by a wild animal at some point, and they all went their different ways. So he presented the staff to the king, and as he was about to go inside to take some rest, he began to cough out blood. Unknown to him, one of his siblings had poisoned him just as he poisoned them. He died after confessing that he killed his brothers, and the king wept like a child. His four wives were heartbroken, and soon the king's health deteriorated. After this, knowing that all his heirs to the throne were dead, his four wives left one after the other, knowing there was nothing left for them at the palace again. Moreover, nobody wants to be saddled with the responsibility of caring for the ill and dying king. Soon, the news of the death of the king's four boys spread like wildfire, and the village were mourning. Aderonke's parents also heard about the death of this princess and they decided to pay the king a visit. The king couldn't stand on his feet, but he could talk. Aderonke's parents mourned with him and they told him that they have news to share with him. They told him that when Aderonke left, she was pregnant from the last intimacy and she gave birth to a baby girl, Morimi. Adironke didn't think it was necessary to let the king know about it, since he doesn't want her anymore, and since he has the sons he has always wanted. Adironke's parents mentioned that they were only there to inform him because they want him to know that he has a daughter somewhere. Adironke would never agree to give him her daughter. The king stood on his feet when he heard this, and he pleaded with Adironke's parents to let him see his daughter for once, even though he knows he doesn't deserve it. After much pleading and persuasion, Adironke's parents agreed. Then they had to convince Adironke, and then she decided to pay the king a visit, and he was very happy to see his daughter, Morimi. He apologized to his wife for how he treated her and asked her to come back, but she informed him that she got married to another man after giving birth to Morimi. The king was not happy to hear this, but there was nothing he could do. His daughter, Morimi, is now an adult, and she told the king that the stepfather is the father she has always known and will always be her father. The king was full of regret, but it was too late. Months later, the king died and the throne was left empty for months. Moremi was the only surviving child of the king, but by tradition, a male child should be the king. However, things changed as the oracle chose Moremi and the people chose her too. So she became the first female queen to rule in that village. Even though it took 2 decades, Moremi took her rightful place in her father's kingdom. If the king had waited as been told, he would have lived longer and happily with his first wife, Aderonke. Patience is very important in life, and we should try to appreciate those who were there with us in times of trials. We may never meet such people again. Thank you so much for watching.